it's Ellie. Welcome back to another tier ranking video. So I've done a couple of these on my channel already. Last year I did a tier ranking video for all the books I had read up until July, and now I figured I would come back and do the rest of the books that I read in 2020. So here they are. It's not very many, at least for me it feels like not that many, but they are very diverse. This is a weird collection of books that I've got here, so I'm just gonna jump right into it. The first book I've got here is The Tattooist of Auswish by Heather Morris, and I thought this one was enjoyable. Oh, by the way, I never said I am doing the same ranking system that I did in my mid-year tier ranking video. So new favorites, enjoyable, trash I like for the books that I know are bad but I still enjoyed anyway. Then we've got the meh category and the not good category, and same disclaimer, just because I think something is not good doesn't mean that the actual book is not good. It's just my opinion, that's all. So back to the ranking. Yeah, I'm gonna put The Tattooist of Auswish right in enjoyable. I thought it was a nice story. It was pretty, I mean, it's not a nice story. It's a very heavy hitting subject, but it was an enjoyable book, and I did like reading it. So yeah, I think it goes right there. The next book is The Golden Compass by Philip Pullman, and I actually talked about the next couple of these books in my reading rush video for July, but this category I maybe should have just called favorites because I've reread some of these books, but The Golden Compass is favorite, like the actual favorite, my probably #1 favorite book of all time, so obviously that's a no-brainer to just go right in new faves. Next up we have the Scorch Trials by James Dashner, and I'm gonna put this one in enjoyable as well, because, you know, and I talked about this in my Reading Rush video for sure. I remember saying this specifically, that the Scorch Trials just feels like it's such an older YA book that I think all of the newer YA books don't really follow this kind of formula anymore, and so it just feels like a relic of the past. And not to say that those books were enjoyable, they just feel aged. They feel like they've aged, and not in the best way. So this story was really good. I probably would have loved these books a lot more if I had read them closer to when they came out, like when I read The Hunger Games originally, but I think I only read The Maze Runner at that time, which is why I probably think so highly of this series just in general, and I'm going back to reading all the sequels that I never did, because I really liked The Maze Runner when I read it. But going through the Scorch Trials and some of the later books, yeah, they were good, but not, you know, not favorite level of good. Anne of Green Gables, however, I am gonna put in new faves. This one really surprised me. I don't generally go towards books like this, and I was surprised how much I liked it, so I'm definitely gonna put that in new faves. I've been meaning to read the sequels. I'm hesitant because I think they're going to be different than the first book. This is following Anne as a child, the next one's she's an adult, so I'm not sure if it's gonna have that same kind of like whimsical childish feel to it, but I definitely want to try to read the sequels soon. I'm just been putting it off to read these other books here. I kind of knocked off a lot of books on my TBR actually, so that was pretty nice. Next up we have The Boy in the Straight Pajamas by John Bone, and this is a reread for me also, as like The Golden Compass. I read this for a reason. I am trying to incorporate it into a video essay that I'm doing about child protagonists, which I'm pretty excited for. I think this is a really great book to introduce children to the idea of the Holocaust and what happened there. And also, at the end of the audiobook, there's actually an interview with the author, and he said something that I really, really liked, which was that he chose to tell this story through the eyes of a child because the child had such an innocent worldview, and he wanted to kind of juxtapose the innocence with the evil of the Holocaust and everything that happened. And I think he did a fantastic job exploring that and kind of finding that balance between telling the story from a kid's perspective, but also as an adult you can see what's really going on. And it's just a really good book. I would recommend this one. So next up I have Once Upon a River by Diane Setterfield, and wow, I just have to say I think she is probably my new favorite author, just for the way that she tells her stories, and all of her stories are so different. She's got 3 books out right now, and I've read all of them in this past half year, and she blows me away in how she can weave mysteries, and the way that she incorporates magic realism into her stories is just phenomenal. She's weaved the story in a way that you could easily find realistic explanations within the world for everything that happened, but she also gives really strong hints to the magic of her worlds, and it's completely up to the reader what you want to believe, and I've never really seen an author do that and do it as well as she does. This, I would say the first book is the one she did it the best in, but definitely all of the books that I read are going to be up here in the new favorite category because she's a phenomenal author. Okay, next up we have Clash of Kings, which is the second book in the Game of Thrones series, and I'm gonna put this one in enjoyable, I think. The Game of Thrones is one of my favorite series, or I guess I should say the Song of Ice and Fire is one of my favorite series. The Game of Thrones is probably the best book of all of those, in my opinion, and then I think they just get weaker as the series goes on, so I really like Clash of Kings. It's one of the better ones, but I just feel like it's enjoyable. It's not really up there in my favorite. Oh, and that was also a reread. I've read the whole series before, if that wasn't clear. So yeah, next up, another Diane Setterfield book, The 13th Tale, which also has a movie, which is pretty good, and yeah, I already said all of her books are going in my new faves category, so same thing as Once Upon a River, just the way that she weaves the mysteries together, the way that all the pieces are there, which is something that I really like. So it doesn't feel like in some mysteries where it just comes out of left field, but it's always surprising the way that the mysteries do unfold, and I think that's really clever the way she does that. So yeah, new favorite. Next up, Once Upon a Time in the North by Philip Pullman. And you know, I'm gonna debate about this one because I really like Philip Pullman's writing style and everything, and I think this little mini novella is pretty nice, but I don't know. I don't think it's something that I would ever pick up again, and I also wasn't that invested in it. Maybe I'm just comparing it to his Dark Materials series, which is my favorite series, so it's kind of hard to live up to that, and even though this is a novella in the world, it's just not as good to me. Or even, it's not even as good as The Book of Dust and that series. I haven't read the second one of that, but that book blew me away too. It was on par with The Golden Compass, so, and then this one is just not. So I'm gonna put this one in meh, I think. Because if I think about all the books that I've read by him, this is the one that I didn't really connect with the most. Okay. Alright, next up, Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. And wow, what a strange book this was. Enjoyable for sure, but the ending kind of threw me, if I'm being honest. And I'm not gonna say any spoilers or anything, so don't worry about that. But the ending just, it seemed like I had a grip on the, like, it's a sci-fi book, so I felt like I had a grip on the sci-fi element in the novel, and then at the end it would just got like times 100 weird, and I had a hard time with it, and it felt a little bit like it came out of nowhere, but I mean, not too much, like it wasn't that jarring or anything when I was reading it. It's just one of those feelings where you're reading it and you're sitting there thinking like, so this is happening now. I see. And yeah, so it, like I said, the book was enjoyable. It definitely belongs in this tier. I wish the ending hadn't been quite so extreme, maybe. I don't know. A Wizard of Earthsea by Ursula Le Guin. This is a tricky one for me because I did like the book, but I think it's an older fantasy, so I feel like when you read it, you can definitely feel the age of the book and the way it's told. It's fairly short too, so, and there's just a lot that happens, so it feels a little rushed at times, and I didn't really connect with the characters that much. I'm not really sure why. I don't think it was anything like the writing was bad or the characters were bad. It was nothing like that. I just personally didn't really connect with the characters that well. That being said, I do think that this book had such a huge influence on fantasy, and I totally see that, and I think that's really cool to kind of go back and see some of these early fantasy books and how far fantasy has come since these books were released. So for that reason, I felt like I was more invested in the story. And honestly, the audiobook that I listened to was really good. The narrator he put a lot of feeling into his narration, and it really worked for the book. I do wonder though, if the narrator hadn't been as good, if I would have liked the book as much. So yeah, I think I'm gonna put this in meh. I don't know. There's nothing wrong with this book. It's good. I don't know why I'm rating things so harshly today, both of these in meh. But it just feels like that's my feeling toward it. Like, I don't really have any inclination to read the next books right away. I probably will at some point, but for now, I think I'm just glad to have read this, and I'm gonna call it done for now. Okay, so now we've got another novella by Philip Pullman, Lyra's Oxford, and again, I like this one better than Once Upon a Time in the North, so I guess I'll put that up here. Let's put Wizard of Earthsea at the front too, because that was definitely the best. I haven't ordered any of these other ones, but maybe I will at the end. But for now, yeah, Lyra's Oxford, also a meh. Just again, I don't know if it really lives up to the standard of the Golden Compass and his most recent books, so yeah, that's where I'm gonna put that one. Okay, so now we've got The Traitor's Game by Jennifer Nielsen, and I did not like this book. So it's like a fantasy romance novel, I guess, and the insta-love in this book really, 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 really bothered me. Like, the people knew each other for, I think, 3 days. Like, legitimately 3 days. And they were in love with each other, and I don't know. It didn't work for me. And also, that's like the only detail that really sticks out in my mind, because I can't remember anything else about this book. It was just so bland. I don't know. The writing wasn't great. It was not bad, just mediocre. And the story was mediocre at best. And the characters were not good. And the romance was awful. So I'm just gonna, yeah, this is a not good book. For me, anyway. Okay, so The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. I hope I said that right. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but this is also, like The Wizard of Earthsea, it's also a old school fantasy book, and I thought it was pretty interesting. Yeah, you know, I'm finding it difficult to come up with anything else to say about this book. I don't know. I think I'm just gonna put it in meh, because you know, I feel like it's the same with The Wizards of Earthsea. Like, it wasn't bad at all. I did like reading it. I think I listened to the audiobook in one sitting, so it wasn't like I got bored or anything. I don't think the story really resonated with me in any way. So I guess I'll just move on. Bellman in Black, another Diane Setterfield book. As far as the story goes, I would say this is probably my least favorite because it didn't really necessarily have a plot in the way that it was about a man starting a business, so like that's the plot, whereas the other two have like a pretty complicated plot. This one didn't. But you know, something I haven't mentioned about her, and one of the reasons she's quickly becoming my favorite author, is that her characters really stand on their own. So even though there wasn't much going on in the plot, I just felt like her characters were really interesting. I wanted to follow them. I wanted to see where they ended up. And again, with the whole mystery, magic, realism thing, I just was really invested in that part of the story. I can't describe how well she does at weaving those elements together. It's really fantastic. I don't know. I will definitely be looking out for all of her future books. Like, she's got me as a fan now. So, next book we've got A Quarter of the Universe by Anne Martin. This was a really... I keep wanting to say nice, which is not the appropriate word to describe this story. I'm going to put this one in enjoyable. This was a really interesting story, and I think in a weird way you could compare it to A Boy in the Straight Pajamas, because it follows a young child, a young girl, as she is exposed to her uncle with a mental illness for the first time. So not only is she figuring out what it means for her uncle to have a mental illness like he does, but she's also kind of experiencing for the first time the way the world reacts to people who are not neurotypical. And it's just, it's really interesting the way you kind of see that play out through the eyes of a child. So almost done here. We've got a couple more. The next book I read was You by Caroline Kepps, and if you don't know, there's a Netflix show based on this novel, which is pretty good, actually. It sticks to the novel, like, fairly well, I would say. And I think, yeah, this was a really good book. Creepy. Really creepy. If you know anything about the series, you know already that it's follows a very interesting person. Being inside of his head was wild, and I enjoyed the book a lot. Alright, so next we've got The Outsiders, and this is a reread for me. I was reading it for the same video essay, kind of talking about child protagonists. I thought The Outsiders would be a good, kind of the end of that spectrum, but still a good look at what it means to follow children in a novel, especially one that deals with subjects like The Outsiders does. I mean, The Outsiders isn't my favorite book. I wish I had like a category in between enjoyable and meh, honestly, because I feel like half of these books would end up there instead. But I think I'm just gonna put this in meh. I think it's really well written, and the story is really important. And I think it is one of those books that's actually good as required reading in school. I feel like I actually liked it more when I read it in school. Maybe it's just because I'm not the target audience anymore. So yeah, I'm just gonna put it in meh. I think that's good. And the last one, The Book Thief. I think people are gonna be mad at me for this, but I'm also gonna put The Book Thief in meh, because I have read that book twice now, and I understand why people like it so much. I really do, but it's just not for me. There are a lot of choices that I admire and appreciate, like the narrator being deaf. I think that's really unique. descriptions, like the little chapter titles almost, I'm not really sure what you would call them, but the little tidbits from death are really cool. And like I said, I know why people like this book so much, but for me it just drags. And I read this once a couple years ago, and at the time I hadn't really been as invested in reading as I am now, so the book was kind of meh for me, and I had been thinking, well, maybe that was the reason that I didn't like it as much. So now that I'm kind of into reading again, I went back to revisit it, and it just doesn't do it for me. So meh, there it is. And that is my entire rankings. The last half of the year was actually pretty good in terms of reading. I didn't really have any books that I disliked majorly. This one was not good, but it wasn't awful. I don't have the insta-love as my main criticism, but it wasn't like some of the other books where I had a lot of bad things to say about it. It's just a completely forgettable book, and that's why I put it there. And other than that, I mean, all of these I wouldn't say were bad in any way. I would even say that I liked some of these books. They just didn't connect with me in the way that some of these other ones did. So, but overall, pretty good. I'm not sure if I'll do ranking videos again, but I will be doing quarterly or half-year wrap-ups with all the books that I read, so look forward to those. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a like and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Until then, bye!